Okay, Commandment 8. This follows from what I just said. Think about what you'd want to learn. It's great if you can go into an interview with a sense of, oh, I already have a sense of what my learning goals would be. I want to work on this, I want to work on this, I want to work on that. And if you are stumping for ideas, one good thing to do would be to go to the ACPE website and look up the standards of ACPE. They're all listed. We have a section called Manuals and Standards, and you can look through the standards, and there's a section called Section 311. And 311 is the objectives and the outcomes of CPE. And you can look at those, and that's what a CPE program is designed to teach you. And then you can say, oh, okay, well, I do pretty well on that one. Oh, maybe I could work more on that, so on and so forth. And that might give you some ideas about areas in which you could focus some learning goals. It's you don't have to have all your learning goals figured out. But if you have one or two that you know, oh, okay, I'd really like to learn more about this and this, then the supervisor's got a better sense of whether or not this would be a good center for you to be at, whether or not those are things that the supervisor feels like he or she could teach you, so on and so forth. Okay, number 9, a supervisor asks himself or herself 4 questions about every person that is interviewed. Now, that we don't usually admit this, so, but we all have some variation on these 4 things. First one. Can I trust you with the people I am supposed to serve? So the patients in the hospital or my clients in the homeless shelter, wherever I'm doing my CPE training. Do I feel like you'd be a good person to have work with the people that our institution serves? If I say yes to that, then I move on to the next one. And the next one is there something that I feel like I could teach you? Do I sense that you're open to learning and that the sorts of things you want to learn about are things I can teach you? Okay. Third question is, will I enjoy being with you? I mean, after all, I'm going to have to invest a lot of my time and energy in you, just like you're going to have to invest time and energy in me. And if it doesn't feel like a good match, then maybe it would be better if you found another supervisor to work with rather than me. That's a very kind of subjective thing, I admit it. But the fourth question is how will this person fit into the larger group? And I know this is true here in the Bay Area, and I think it's true throughout the country. But we supervisors like to create a diverse learning group. And the reason for that is because we believe that students teach each other as well as, if not better, than what the supervisor teaches. There's a long-held axiom in CPE that says that the patients are the biggest teachers, then your peers, and then the supervisor somewhere down toward the bottom. So we want to try to create a group where there's a lot of diversity, in terms of religious affiliation, gender balance, racial and ethnic identification. There are a number of variables that we're looking at when we try to compose a group. So that sometimes means that we choose one person to invite to a group when they're over another, when both would be equally fine in the group, but because we're trying to increase the diversity mix, we would prefer one over the other. So, so that will happen from time to time, and it's not a science; it's an art. We're trying to figure out, okay, well, we need to have somebody who kind of represents this style of learning because so far I've got a bunch of visual learners, or we've got, we'd like to have Unitarian in the mix because right now I've got a bunch of Baptists, and Unitarian might help. So those kinds of calculations are happening for us, but as I said, it's an inexact art. Okay, so now, while the supervisor's asking 4 questions, you should be asking 4 questions. 1, is this a place where I'd like to work and do my ministry? If the answer is no, then look elsewhere. Secondly, does this supervisor seem to know something that I need or want to learn? If you don't feel like you're going to learn anything from this person, well then again, not a good investment of your time. Third, will I enjoy being with this supervisor? Again, if you feel like this person's a jerk or doesn't seem to be listening to me or doesn't seem to take seriously what I have to say, those are good pieces of information for you to stay away from that person. And fourth, am I ready for what this opportunity has to offer me? Now that's a big, hard question to ask. Because sometimes people get into CPE and they haven't given themselves enough time to think about what it demands. And at most CPE centers, you have to do on-call, they're long hours, you're on full time, you don't get paid much if you get paid at all. You're having to see lots and lots of patients, you're having to do homework, read. It's demanding. It's very demanding. And if you have a family, you've got to think about, your family's going to have to make a sacrifice just like you're making a sacrifice. And you were going to say something.
Thank you. This is Gabrielle. I wanted to add that on this point, if you look at the handbook, the section on CPE, what we recommend as King is that you have a very open conversation with your advisor to determine when is a good time to do this. And that, there is not a standard answer. It depends on you, your family, your health, your life situation, your studies at the moment. So make sure that when you make the decision, I'm going to apply because I want to do it next semester or the summer, you have that conversation with your advisor. And listen, if your advisor is someone with whom you really worked well for the previous couple of semesters at least, the person should really be able to give you some good advice on whether, and listen, if the advisor says, in light of such and such, I don't think it's a good time, listen. You might want to do it, but maybe that's not, for different reasons, might not be a good time, and wait. I know so many people are anxious about doing it, but...
I would say there's a Christian parable where Jesus says you need to count the cost. And I think that really does apply to CPE. CPE can be enormously rewarding, but it is also very demanding. And so I would really strongly encourage you to make sure you don't have a lot of outside obligations or commitments that would impede you from immersing yourself as fully as you can in the experience. Try to make sure you're in pretty good health, as best of health as you can be when you get started in the experience. People don't tend to eat very well, very nutritiously when they're in CPE because they tend to grab what they can. Sleep is sometimes in short supply. And exercise sometimes goes out the window when you do CPE. So all this to say that CPE doesn't explicitly talk about self-care. And it's important to know that's not in the ACPE objectives and outcomes. There's nothing about self-care. You can do a word search and you won't find it in there. There's an assumption that self-care is your responsibility and that you will work on it. Now, a supervisor will talk with you about it and will certainly, offer advice and suggestions, but really the assumption is that you're going to come in and be able to devote yourself fully to the experience while you're in it. And so hopefully you've done that sort of calculation when you apply. So you get a bonus commandment, by the way. The bonus commandment is that a no can sometimes be a yes. And what I mean by this is that you may have your heart set on going to a particular center, and you apply and you interview, and then they say no. And it can be very heartbreaking. But at the same time, just about every person whom I've met who has been told no by one place and then told yes by another place has said to me, oh, this has really been a good fit for me. I'm really glad I got to go to this center. And what they found is that CPE works well just about anywhere you go. And if you're open to learning, you can be open to learning anywhere. So it's okay to have favorites. I mean, I'm not saying you don't apply to everything willy-nilly. Definitely, if you find that there are certain centers that you really want to apply to, great. But again, try to leave yourself open to the divine leading or to God's calling or however you define the religious ultimate, that the universe may lead you to the center you need to be at, and that you may not know what that is when you get started in that process. So, okay, so those are the 10 commandments plus a bonus.